Who was St. Bernard? Or rather, putting it in the present, which is more appropriate for us who believe in eternal life and the communion of saints, who is Bernard of Clairvaux? And we know that question has often been asked and attempted to be addressed. And twice our monastic community earlier this year in the month of April and in the month of May, we were provided insights into this person of Clairvaux, this monk, this man, sometimes called the chimera of his age. In some ways he is a mystery, but aren't all of us mysteries, not just to others, but to ourselves. Nevertheless, we need to ask that question of Bernard, who is he? In the same way that you and I have to ask the question, who am I? Certainly, we know of his works in the sense of his writings. We know of his engagement at the level of the medieval 12th century church in Europe and in the political scene and society of his time. And all these do tell us something about his person, even though it may not satisfy our answers. But I propose that first and foremost, if you want to understand St. Bernard of Clairvaux, first look at the rule of St. Benedict, the rule that he loved, the rule that he lived. I believe you will start getting some insights into Bernard. He too, like you and I, at least those of us who are monks, he was scrutinized by the seniors of that fledgling new monastery called Citeaux. Those seniors asked, "Do you truly seek God, Bernard of Fontaine? Are you eager for the work of God? Are you eager for obedience? Are you eager for trials? And here are all the hardships and difficulties you can expect to encounter if you enter this new monastery." Well, I would venture to say Bernard not only answered in the affirmative, but not just at that moment, but by his entire life of 63 years. He died at the age of 63. He was truly seeking God. He prayed the divine office like you and I do. He gave himself to holy reading, what we call Lectio Divina. He was obedient. He probably struggled with that. He did practice humility. Perhaps he struggled with that. But is that so strange? Is there one here who never struggles with obedience? Who never struggles with those 12 steps of humility as found in the rule of St. Benedict? And from our hymn this morning, you may have missed it, but he exchanged the ring, the abbatial ring, for the rake. So he was out there raking walnuts during the walnut harvest, at least which we used to do in the good old days. So he did his share of manual labor, at least in his early years. Well, in this entire process of doing these things, he began to live these things. And as the gospel promises, and as it's contained in the rule of Saint Benedict, which is the interpretation of the gospel for monks, Bernard, in this whole process, became the friend of the cross that we hear in that second reading, Paul's letter to the Philippians. And he was transformed by this cross. He became a new creation, meaning if you're transformed into Christ, you are in communion with Christ. You are one heart, one spirit with Christ, and therefore with the triune God. And lo and behold, the prudence and wisdom we hear about in the first reading became his. And furthermore, in this whole process by which he was transformed, he received the greatest of gifts. And again, we can't emphasize enough that this is gift. It's not the merit of St. Bernard that gained it. He became, as the gospel proclaimed, salt of the earth, light for the world, a city set on the mountaintop, all because he came to have the mind of Christ.